Good evening and welcome to the December 9, 2020 Civil Service Commission meeting for the City of Glendale. May we please have roll call?
Commissioner Historian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley? Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Here.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Here.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes for the meeting of October 14, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Move and dispense with reading.
Thank you. We'll take that as a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Historian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Oral communications?
I see no notifications of any requests for oral communications. Next item, please.
Recruitment and examination report.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is our current status of our recruitments. This is a report we do each month showing all the recruitments going on with job title, department, whether it's an open or promotional process, and of course the dates of the exam. We have 57 processes in action right now, and for being on a somewhat of a hiring freeze, that is a lot of activity. Again, there's several recruitments listed. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you. Next item, please.
Eligible list established.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is our eligible list that have been established since our last meeting, which was held in mid-October. We have 8 lists that have been established, 6 of them promotional, 2 of them open. Again, as I always say, this is the culmination of our recruitment processes where we indicate the number of applicants and then ultimately the number that make the list in the far right column. Aside from this, this item, I do have one correction to the report. It's the 3rd recruitment list listed where it says Senior Water Facilities Operator. It should say Glendale Water and Power, not Public Works. But other than that, this report is complete. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. If not, this is a note and file item.
Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, Criminalist series.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a class specification for approval for the Criminalist series within the Glendale Police Department. This is a result of what's being proposed as a fairly ambitious reorganization where the police department is proposing to combine 2 existing job series, the forensic series and the DNA series, into one rather extensive series. And you can see this is one of the more voluminous specifications that's probably ever been brought to you. Our apologies for that, but in combining these 2 series, we're really enhancing the value of the employees by enabling them to cross-train and learn the other trade and provide essentially better service for the organization and the community. As the Commission is aware, our police department does run the Verdugo Regional Crime Lab, which is a great benefit to crime fighting efforts both within the city of Glendale and to our surrounding communities. In order to staff this lab, a lot of effort needs to go into the really the training and development of the employees here. And again, it's 2 very complex areas, both forensics and DNA, and retention is always a big factor. So again, with this proposal, by combining these 2 series, we hope to better enhance the entire work operation and really just serve the community better. This is a comprehensive series. It's quite long. You'll see it's from the entry level, sort of the tech level, through Criminalist, Roman numeral 1 through 5, and it also includes the lab director. Again, it's a extensive job series, but there's a lot of overlap in all the jobs, and so we felt it was appropriate to include all in one rather lengthy series. So with that, I'd be happy to try and answer questions for you on this. Chief Povolitis is here, and I believe Catherine Newen from who is the lab director from the police department is available as well. And with that, I present this for your consideration. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Can somebody explain to me what the friction ridge comparison is?
Okay. Mr. Chair, we'll have the chief address that.
I'm so glad I don't have to do the explanation. It'll be my version of it. Go ahead, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Gazarian and members of the Civil Service Commission. I'll do my best, and then I may toss the potato to Catherine Nguyen. But friction ridge comparison, if you look at your fingers, the parts that leave a fingerprint, you have parts that are higher and lower than each other. And so the ridges is what leaves the fingerprint, and that's what you're comparing. So the friction ridge is looking at the fingerprint that somebody leaves. We pick up the print, put it on a piece of paper, and then you got to compare those ridges.
Very well put. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Seconds? Any second?
Yeah. McCarley.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Commissioner
Take the roll
Moran.
call.
Commissioner Storian,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you, Chief. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, Customer Service Utility Series.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a class specification for consideration for the Customer Service Utility Series within the Glendale Water and Power Department. This is a very important group of employees within GWP, and they handle really all the business operations within the utility, billing, customer accounting, the call center. Basically, these are the folks who answer all your questions and address problems with your utility accounts. As the report says, this series was last updated in the year 2000, and obviously a lot has changed in 20 years. So, again, this is an effort to upgrade the specification, make it more contemporary and up to date. The minimum qualifications are largely the same, and we are, however, doing a slight modification, actually an increase to the typing speed requirement from, I believe, 20 words per minute to 30. And I know the commission is probably aware we've looked at this issue of typing speed in a number of our clerical and administrative positions, and typically we've been going the other direction and relying less so on typing speed. But in this area, this is probably an exception because these individuals do operate keyboards pretty much throughout the day. They wear headsets. There are performance metrics, and I believe all of their calls and activities are timed and measured. So a great deal of thought goes into how they conduct their jobs on a daily basis. So with that, I am presenting this for your consideration. We have staff here to answer your questions if you have any. Tammy Valier is the Customer Services Administrator. I believe she is on the WebEx, as is Steve Zern, who's the General Manager for Glendale Water and Power.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just have one comment, quick comment. This series being the most important series of people that are in direct contact with the citizens, I'm looking at the, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see the exceptional customer service portion of it anywhere in the actual bulletin itself, and maybe I missed it again. So if I missed it, I apologize, but I don't see it anywhere that says that the number one priority for them is to have exceptional customer service. And I don't really see that anywhere here.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abkarian, on the fourth page of this job description, under the abilities to, on the fourth page, and that's page 26, It's about 5 lines down. It says essentially the ability to, then it says provide exceptional customer service practices to those utilizing GWP services. So,
Okay, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't see that.
okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. Roll call as to the item, please.
Do we have a first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll approve. Carly.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Narek.
Commissioner Storian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner Karian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification and job bulletin for approval. General Manager, Glendale Water and Power.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is the class specification and job bulletin for the executive level position of general manager for Glendale Water and Power. As you know, the current general manager has submitted for retirement after a 34-year career with the city of Glendale, Mr. Zern. I believe his retirement will take effect at the end of this month. So we certainly wish him well and a long and effective career with this organization. As far as this recruitment, before embarking on this recruitment, we felt it was important to look at the class specification and revise it to make sure, again, it's up to date and contemporary with all the latest trends in the utility industry. Also, because this is a department head recruitment, our civil service rules do require that the job bulletin be presented for your approval and consideration. So in this case, we have both a spec and a bulletin for your consideration. As you know, the individual hired for this position will head up our water and power department, really one of our largest city departments, with a budget of well over $300 million and well over 300 city employees. That's a big responsibility. The city's intent would be to utilize a search firm to assist us in the outreach. However, after the initial stages of that outreach, staff will run a civil service process involving of multiple interview panels, including a professional panel, an internal panel, and a community panel as well. With that, again, this is both a spec for revision as well as the bulletin. We sort of lump them together into one portion here. I also would like to let you know Mr. Galanian, our interim city manager, is here, in case you'd like him to say a few words or if you have questions for him as we embark upon this recruitment. So, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
On page 36 of the agenda, which deals with this issue, and that is paragraph 7, right in the middle of the page. It says it starts with encourages looking for renewable sources. With what is going on with Grayson and the general sentiment of the population as well as the council, shouldn't that be replaced or be added that the active or the Glendale Water and Power potential manager will actively seek renewable sources for the portfolio?
No.
Did somebody want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's admirable to consider moving toward renewable services, but from a technical standpoint, I don't see that adding that council, which is a good initiative, in fact constitute an element of a class specification for hiring purposes. Keeping that, we're going to get we will.
We can't hear you, Commissioner McCarley.
Once again, it looks like we're constantly being unmuted. What I suggested is that, notwithstanding my admiration for the commentary from my distinguished commissioner, I would have great hesitancy about introducing such an intent. It's favorable, certainly something that I, an individual, support, movement for renewable sources of energy. But to bring that into a class specification which is intended to be a technical document for the purpose of ascertaining and confirming qualifications, to me, would not, at this point in time, be the right thing. Interestingly, if we do it now, happen to say, for the purposes of director of water and power, portion should move out on a specific initiative such as renewables, nothing will stop a variety of individuals from introducing those sorts of expectations into class specifications for most of our positions within the city. So it potentially introduces an element of politics into something that is supposed to be transparent and eminently mechanical. So again, I support the initiative. I don't support it being introduced as a requirement in a class specification.
Thank you, Commissioner McCarley, for that opinion. Any other comments or opinion or questions about the item?
Yeah, maybe I do have one more if I can take advantage of my time. I think I'm still unmuted and good to go. And this would be directed to Mr. Doyle, and that he did indicate that in the upgrading of the class specification that he consulted, maybe this is my expectation, I can't quote him directly, but I would assume that he consulted with or reviewed similar class specifications for comparable municipal leaders of municipal water and power facilities. For instance, reference to either Burbank, a bit smaller city, Long Beach, a bit bigger city, Pasadena, which has its own water and power capability, to determine some of the qualifications and to see if the qualifications that we have identified in our classification, our specification, are the same or similar to those qualifications that are brought forth by all practical purposes, I'm going to call them our municipal competitors. So, Matt, I don't know how you'll respond to that. I don't know.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I can respond,
Sure.
Chair Gazarian, Commissioner McCarley, that's exactly how we did this. Myself, members of my staff, primarily Ms. Hunanian, did look at our neighboring jurisdictions. We sought input from our city manager, our city attorney, and we even ran this by the incumbent, Mr. Zern. So we got some ideas from a lot of different sources, and I know, and perhaps Mr. Galani can speak for himself, but I know he's gotten lots of input from his bosses on the city council on this matter, as well as some input from various members of the community. So a lot of information went into preparing this, and we absolutely did compare ourselves to some of the neighboring jurisdictions, particularly Burbank, who actually went through this process about 6 months ago. They filled their own position of general manager. So we think it's a pretty comprehensive review of what's expected of this job. And if there are things that we miss, and we certainly would be open to looking at those things. One of the reasons why we sought to upgrade the spec, because the last one had been, again, over 10 years since we had done that, and there's been a whole lot of movement in the industry on the areas of renewables and clean energy and that sort of thing. So you'll see a lot of language reflecting that, and again, if the commissioners have some suggestions or input on that, we'd certainly be open to that as well. So, and Mr. Galani, and if you want to add anything to that, you're welcome to.
Yes, good evening, Chair Gazarian, members of the commission. There isn't much I can add. Mr. Doyle pretty much covered everything that we have gone through. We have, like it was mentioned, checked with cities of Burbank and Pasadena's job descriptions. I have personally contacted the city manager of City of Burbank to pick his brain and get his feedback on what went well and what didn't go so well with their recruitment that was completed recently. I have shared the process that we're going with City Council. I've gotten their feedback. It's going to be somewhat difficult to fill Mr. Zern's shoes, big shoes to fill. But like Mr. Doyle mentioned, there's been a lot of changes in the industry since we last had a recruitment for this position. Mr. Zern and his staff, his team have done an admirable job, very impressive job of seeing us through some very difficult financial challenges at the onset, and then with the proposed repowering of the Grayson power plant. We are well on the way to see their efforts come into fruition. COVID and the pandemic has set us back somewhat, but we are on the right track. Unfortunately, Mr. Zern wasn't able to stay around to see the fruit of his labor, but he's left an organization behind that is well run, well managed, and we're just going to move forward. And we are aligned with the council's vision for that position and that department.
Thank you, Mr. Gulani. Any other comments, questions?
I have a, go ahead, Mr. Hartman.
No, go ahead, Mr. Akari. I'll follow you.
I have a question and then a quick comment as well. First of all, Mr. Zern, who will be the acting director while you leave us next month?
That'll be up to Mr. Gulani.
Oh, okay. So there hasn't been any decision made as to who would be replacing you as acting director.
Right.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Mr. Zern will be available until, and he's on our payroll, and he's continuing to wrap things up until the end of the year. Until such time that he's not gone and he's still with the city, we won't be able to appoint an acting position, someone in acting position. There are a number of internal and external candidates that I'm currently talking to and interviewing in the hopes of being able to pick someone and appoint someone beginning of the year.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then my comment basically at this point was, Mr. Zern, I might not get a chance to thank you, but thank you so much for everything you've done. You've been just an incredible person. What you've done for the city is just beyond what anyone has expected. And I just wanted to thank you and congratulate you and wish you the best of luck on your new venture that you're going into.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to echo Mr. Akarian's comment and congratulate Mr. Zern and thank him for many years of great service. I also wanted to, it's more of a comment, wanted to add on what Mr. Astorian mentioned. I would like to see, however possible, more encouragement towards actively seeking renewable energy sources. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite understand or hear Mr. McCarty's comment for Mr. Astorian's question or comment. So I'm not sure what the technical difficulties are, but I liked Mr. Astorian's comments, and if possible, I would like to see, obviously we're operating to keep up to speed and bring it, up to speed from the last 20 years, and renewable energy sources have been a major part of the last 20 years. And if possible, I'd like to see more encouragement towards such work. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. If there are no other comments.
Yeah, I've got one.
Go ahead.
If we, and I appreciated the commentary of our acting city manager, and as he communicated with his counterparts in Pasadena and in Burbank, and I suppose I'm going to be stepping on very brittle ice on this one. What were the CVs, the curriculum vitae of the directors of both of those departments of water and power?
Chair Gazanian, members of the commission, Commissioner McCarley. City of Burbank recently went through a recruitment.
Yeah.
And the person that they selected comes from the state of Colorado. She was number 2 in their utility department. And my counterpart in City of Burbank is very happy with that selection. And they had some internal candidates, but this person from Colorado, this lady, came up on top, and he believes it was a very good choice. He's very happy with it.
Now, to get specific, did this successful candidate have a PE?
I don't believe so.
All right. If I ask that question, we extended that question to Pasadena, is the director a holder of a PE?
Pasadena, yes.
Okay.
Not Burbank.
And I'm trying simultaneously to do some research on it myself, but the director of LA, I believe he does have a PE.
Yes, he's in the water department. He came from the water department.
That means, okay, we can check right now. The question, of course,
No, he has one, Commissioner McCarley. He is an engineer because his title is General Manager and Chief Engineer of LA DWP.
Yeah,
it's the first chief engineer they've had in probably 15 years.
And as I said, it is a subject of exploration. It's perhaps, as I said, we're walking on brittle ice. Because, of course, the initial requirements specify some background in engineering, a basic engineering degree in any of the 4 or 5 categories of engineering. I guess intuitively you would say that the functions of a general manager of a water and power facility would be, one, to understand the technical dynamics of the development, distribution, creation of energy on the electric side, renewable or otherwise, and from the water side, the source of supply, volume of supply, the capability of the system to accommodate pressures, all that sort of technical jargon, which is perhaps way beyond my understanding. And then the second part, of course, is that which relates to the finance and the allocation of the revenues, certainly the development and maintenance of revenues to continue the support of DWP, and as well the appropriate usage. And that's why many of the entities are moving to both a PE requirement and essentially some sort of administrative background, whether acquired through experience or acquired by going to some B school, business school, to get that information. I just raised that because I think it's got to go on the record if somebody listens to this, if we have an audience for what we're doing, that we have indeed discussed whether or not the DWP director should have a PE, because I can guarantee to you that tomorrow there is going to be a note someplace circulating in this community about the fact that we perhaps did not discuss whether or not it's appropriate to require that one of the most senior officials in our city have a professional engineering degree to satisfy the technical requirements of the job, to include seeking out renewables, which is in and of itself is highly technical. So that's my commentary on it. I'm not I'm not suggesting a motion. I wanted to stimulate some conversation. I don't really care if it comes back negative toward me, but I want it on the record that we have discussed it.
Mr. Chair, harking back on Commissioner McCarty's comments, the question that I had, and I think your comments were very apt. I think the question that I have is the following: that the degrees that we require again on page 36, are they weighted? In other words, does a degree, a certain degree in engineering, outweigh a business administration degree. And that's something that we need to be cognizant because of the technical nature and the administrative nature of this job to come. So Matt, I guess this is the question that I have for you. Are these weighted, or when we are recruiting the new GWP head, are we going to weight the type of the degree that they carry or that they have earned?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I would say no. What we're looking for, again, is somebody to head an organization that's well over $300 million budget, and as I said, 340 some employees. The requirement of an engineering degree, or the preference for an engineering degree, and the PE license, no less, it would not seem as relevant or pertinent to me, or at least as far as giving that a particular preference in our recruitment outreach. I've been in this organization a long time. I think I was trying to figure how many general managers I've worked with. I could count at least 6, including Mr. Zern. Back many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, all of the general managers, whether it was Burbank, LA, Pasadena, Glendale, you typically had to have an engineering degree and a PE license. But the industry has kind of moved away from that, and it's broadened to people with background in business administration, public administration, even law. We've had, I know LA has had a couple of their general managers who have been people with law degrees. Burbank, City of Burbank, their longtime general manager, who actually went on to become city manager, he had a background in finance. Again, the engineering background is obviously a good background to have, but we wouldn't say that would be essential. And like I said, years ago, it was kind of the standard thing for the top person to be an engineer. But my observation is that we've moved away from that a bit. And had that been the case, we would have never had the benefit of Mr. Zern's services as general manager. And I think we can all agree he did a fine job in the last whatever it's been 7 or 8 years. So to answer your question, no, an engineering degree would not be given a preference. And again, I don't want to speak for Mr. Galanian, who is an engineer. He may have a preference, but all I'm saying is the trend that I've seen in general is more of a generic managerial background is what would suffice, and finding the right person who can lead and manage an organization of this size would be the primary skill that we would be focusing on, as opposed to any particular technical skill.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd also like to add that we have 2 chief assistant general managers, one in charge of the electric and the other one in charge of the water divisions, and they both are PEs. They're engineers. They are tasked with managing the day-to-day technical operational needs of those 2 divisions, obviously with the oversight of the general manager.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian, for the record, I'd like to point out that in reviewing this specification, I have focused on the experience section that requires 10 years of responsible management experience with a utility or similar organization, and indicates further that this experience must include 5 years as a division head or principal level with supervisory experience. I had deducted from information that I happen to have handy that a department such as this would necessarily have staff with engineering background, and you've just confirmed with me that you've confirmed to us that you have at least 2 people with PEs. So because of those reasons and the initial observation by Commissioner McCarley whereas I agree with my fellow commissioners' renewable energy concerns and desires, I tend to also agree with Commissioner McCarley's concerns that specifying that in the job description perhaps would be beyond our domain, and at least I personally would be uncomfortable voting for a job specification that makes these points highlighted, although they are points I very much agree with. I'm just not sure it belongs in a job specification. If there are other questions or comments, please say so. If the item as it stands, without any additional comments or questions, is ripe for a motion, so be it. If anybody wants to make an alternative motion, of course, each commissioner is welcome to. So any other questions for starters? No other questions? Any other comments?
Move to approve.
Any second? Is there no second?
So, Mr. Chair, if there's no second, the motion would fail for lack of a second. We would then entertain an alternate motion.
May I inquire from the counsel for the commission, am I precluded from being a second? If I am, so be it. If I'm not, in the interest of moving it along, I would second it to see where the commissioners are in this, at this juncture.
Second.
Chair Gazarian, if we were in the council chambers, you would pass the gavel and you would second it. So
I see.
since we're not, we would virtually pass the gavel, and you may now second the motion. And then we would then entertain discussion and then a vote.
I understand. I think I heard a second from a fellow commissioner.
Yeah, right. Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to second the motion. The suggestions that we had, we thought are stuff that are embedded in the attitudes of the council as well as the general public. Having said that, I'll be happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Astorian. Having now received a second, I will not virtually pass the gavel. I will ask for a vote on the item.
Commissioner Astorian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley? Commissioner McCarley?
You're muted, Commissioner McCarley.
Abstain.
Commissioner Hartunian? Commissioner Hartunian? I believe we're having technical difficulties with Commissioner Hartunian.
Commissioner,
I see his camera circling. Maybe he's connected again. Do you want to ask again, Naik?
Yes, Commissioner Hartunian? I believe he's still frozen. Oh, we did hear a yes.
I
thought I heard a yes.
Yes. Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Gazarian?
yes, thank you.
Yes, yes,
Next item, please.
yes.
Job bulletin for approval, principal mechanical engineer.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Doyle.
just want to also note for the record that Commissioner Hartunian was also nodding yes. We may have not heard him, but he was visually nodding yes.
The record will so reflect. Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a request for a job bulletin for approval for principal mechanical engineer. Again, this is the approval for a job bulletin, not a spec. The reason this bulletin is being brought before you is that Glendale Water and Power, they're seeking to recruit for this position on an open basis, whereas in the past, or its last recruitment, it was handled promotionally. As you can see from the minimum qualifications and all the responsibilities of this position, it's quite a high-level, accomplished position within our Water and Power Department. It does require 8 years experience, 4 years of managerial experience, and obviously an engineering background along with the registered PE. So at this point, we do not believe that we have a sufficient pool of candidates internally to promote into this position, and thus we're requesting that this be an open recruitment bulletin. That concludes my presentation. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. And I do believe we have individuals from Water and Power who are here. Mark Young, who is the Deputy General Manager for the Power Section, and I believe Mr. Zern is still on the call as well. So,
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Any motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
If I can be heard now, I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Astorian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Adoption of resolution, report on unclassified status proposal for administrative associate homeless programs.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this item is a resolution establishing an administrative associate position that works with our homeless programs as an unclassified position. I'll remind the commission of what this is about because it doesn't come up very often. But on occasion, we will come to you seeking approval to declare certain positions unclassified, which means that the position would fall outside of the civil service system. This is usually done for positions that whose funding is outside of the city's control, usually from grants or other sources. And the idea is that if the funding does ever run out, that we would have the ability to terminate that employee unencumbered by any civil service protections. And it's, we try to be as transparent and open with this process as possible, and letting the candidates know upfront, in the job bulletin, that it is an unclassified position. It's not your typical civil service commission. So there is full disclosure, but that's essentially the purpose of this request. I do have Mr. Bulletin here, who's the Director of Community Services and Parks, as well as Yvette Semelian, who is the homeless manager as well, to address this. And I believe either of those two can elaborate on how staff had to essentially cobble together several grants from several sources in order to fund this position. So if I could turn it over to one of them as well. And again, this is a resolution for consideration. The bulletin is listed here as well, so you can see what the position is about. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Bulanikian or Ms. Sembelian.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Chair Ghazarian, members of the commission. Basically, this, as Mr. Doyle mentioned, it's the admin associate. I'm overseeing and assisting Ms. Samuelian in homeless programs, contract management. There are a number of funding sources and different funds coming in to the city of Glendale. We're expanding our operations, especially due to COVID. We have state funding, Measure H funding, and also additional funding through HUD, which will pay for this position. We hope, we are sure that this position will be funded for the next couple of years, working with Homeless Outreach, Essentia, and different nonprofit organizations providing homeless services in Glendale. If you have any questions regarding the position, myself or Ms. Samuelian are here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have just a comment about this. As Mr. Doyle knows, a number of years ago, there were a lot of positions that were unclassified that stayed unclassified for years and years. I'm talking maybe for 10 or 15 years, they were unclassified. And it was due to the effort of Roy Coleman, our former commissioner, that we were able to actually bring him into the classified circle. So just a cautionary note. I understand that you're doing this on an unclassified, and I understand that there's limited budget for a very short period of time. But just as a comment that if it continues and it goes on for 4 years or so, and you see that it's become kind of a permanent position, then I ask you to please switch the unclassified to the classified so this person doesn't become an unclassified for the next 15 years.
Thank you, Commissioner Abkarian. Any other comments? Hearing none. Is there a motion? Does it require a motion, Mr. Doyle? Yes. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Any second? That's Commissioner McCarley. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Astorian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you.
Public hearing, classifications and positions.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as this report indicates, periodically we bring forth resolutions to the commission as set forth in our civil service rules and regulations involving various aspects of our operational duties here. We try to do this every couple of years to address the changes in the job titles affecting these resolutions. And there's really 3 of them that we're bringing.
Mr. Doyle, I apologize. I really do. I think because this is the public hearing portion, I think it needs to be handled a little bit differently. Am I mistaken, Ms. Warpetian, that we need to open the public hearing first?
We would hear the report and then we would open the public hearing. We would then entertain any public comments. We would close the public hearing and then we would vote.
Got it. I thought you had to do it in the beginning. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. So again, there are 3 resolutions we're asking you to consider tonight, and I believe they can be handled in the course of one public hearing. But the first deals with declaration of our part-time hourly positions that they be declared unclassified, and this is simply a renewal of what's already been in place for many years. And again, this one hardly ever changes unless we establish a new part-time or hourly position. But by nature of the jobs, our part-time hourly positions are at will, and they tend to be either intermittent or temporary in nature. So we typically declare them to be unclassified. The second is the declaration of entrance-level classifications, or more commonly known as the entry-level classifications. And this is called for within our rules to establish, what is an entry-level job as opposed to other more journey-level or seasoned or senior-level positions. And there's really 2 important reasons for declaring classifications entry-level. One is that under our rules, there's a veterans credit that is assigned for those who are leaving or honorably discharged from the military. They can potentially get additional credit points in our selection process for entry-level positions, but it has to be an entry-level position in order to do so. Therefore, this designation is key for those jobs. The second reason is any job bulletins that are available for entry-level positions, they're considered pre-approved under our rules, meaning they would not have to come before the commission for any type of pre-approval. So by nature of the fact that they're entry level, that we could conduct open recruitments as they occur. Again, this report on the entry level has no changes as far as I'm aware of. Again, so what we would be doing is just reinstating what's been in effect. The third resolution relates to the declarations of our job classifications that have 12-month probationary periods as opposed to 6 months, which is the norm for most of our non-managerial positions. And a lot of people don't realize it is the commission that makes this determination. What's a 6-month probation versus a 12-month? This resolution does have changes, and typically those changes relate to new job titles that have been added or approved by the city council. And And again, the probationary period is an important aspect of city employment, and we take them very seriously because while an employee is on a probationary period, albeit a 6-month or a 12-month, they are considered at will. If they're not meeting our standards, they can be let go for any legal, any lawful and appropriate reason. But once they do pass their probation, then they truly attain their civil service protections. And if there is a need to discipline or remove an employee once they've passed probation, then as the commission well knows, it can be a little more challenging to take that action. So the probationary period is really key. And like I said, most of our non-managerial positions have a 6-month probation. Pretty much all of our public safety positions, police and fire, managerial positions from mid-management all the way up to executive are on a 12-month probation, and those are reflected in this third resolution. So with that, if you have questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them for you. As Commissioner Abkarian stated, this is a public hearing, so the chair would have to open a public hearing.
The public hearing is hereby declared open. Let us proceed with any public comments. How do you want to proceed, Mr. Doyle? Is this a time that you want to say anything further? I don't see any requests from the public for any comments.
But
go ahead.
Chair Gazarian, we would at this time open the public hearing and ask for comments from the public. If there are none, then we would close the public hearing.
Okay, so the public hearing is at this time open, and I believe I said I don't see any comments from the public, so perhaps I should specifically invite the public to make comments and wait a few seconds or some reasonable period of time, given the fact that this civil service meeting has been previously published and has been given notice. The public has been given notice, and still having not heard or seen any desire by the public to make a comment, I will now close the public hearing at this time. Let's proceed. What is next, Ms. Varbetian? What is it that I should be doing?
We would ask for comments from the commissioners and then ultimately a vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments from commissioners or questions? Hearing none, may we proceed with the vote if there's a motion to approve? It requires a motion, correct? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yes, we need a motion.
I move to approve all three items at the same time and vote on them at the same time, unless if anyone disagrees.
Is that a concurrence, Commissioner McCarley?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is that also, may I also accept that as a second of the motion?
You may.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Astorian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Reports?
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, the only report we have is your monthly report on past due evaluations. It's, I think, one of the best ones we've seen in quite a while. There do not appear to be any departments with any past due evaluations. So kudos to the organization and its department heads and managers and supervisors for getting them all in a timely fashion. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think it requires any action or a vote. Next item, please.
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Any comments? Okay, I hear.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Abkarian. Yes, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, I do want to say something before we sign off for the year. I guess we gave a fond farewell to Mr. Zern after many years of service with the city. But I want to recognize a member of my staff who is on the call tonight, who is leaving us, very sadly. But Sean Chavez, who's one of our human resources analysts, actually human resources analyst 2. He's been with us a little over 5 years. Unfortunately, he's leaving the organization. Sean has a really good opportunity with essentially family-oriented. He and his fiance are going into business together, and he'll be joining her business, which is a very successful practice here in town. But Sean has been a really, really good employee for us. Many of you know he's worked very closely with our police department, keeping their recruitment processes on track. He's done a lot of work with Community Development Department, Public Works Department, and really just been a great contributor to our organization these past 5 years. And I'm really sad to see him go, but I do want to commend him and thank him for his years of service with the city. And if the commission so desires, I would hope they would bid him a fond farewell as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Any other comments?
Yeah, not hearing that, I would like to thank. I've known Sean for a very long time. He's done an incredible job. I've given him a lot of heartache, and he's taken it and he's given us a lot of great report through the years. So, Sean, best of luck to you. I wish you and your fiance the best of luck in whatever you do.
Thank you, Commissioner Abkarian. Let me just add that beyond echoing all of the sentiments expressed, I wish each and every person on this call, as well as the audience at large in the city of Glendale, and all loved ones, family, and friends alike, a safe and healthy holidays and a better 2021 for all of us. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Could you move to adjourn?
Thank you. We are adjourned. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.